What's going on, everybody? We are here, free agency day one. I'm going to be reacting to all this stuff live happening right now. It has already started. I'm getting to this a little bit late, but I will go ahead and recap some of the big stuff, maybe even all the stuff that's going on thus far, since I guess 12 o'clock is when it officially began. So, what just happened actually was one of the bigger ones, Mike McGlinchey going to the Broncos on a 5-year deal worth $87.5 million with 50 million guaranteed. So it's a huge deal. Broncos definitely need help on the O line, so that's a huge deal for them. Obviously, San Francisco losing a player there, and that's going to be big for the Kyle Shanahan running game and whatnot. But I mean, I feel like they're pretty good at drafting over there in San Francisco, so that might not be too big of a problem for them. Next guy, this one hurts a whole lot, obviously, as an Eagles fan here. We have Javon Hargrave actually leaving to go to San Francisco. So I guess since they knew McGlinchey was probably going to be gone, they could now afford what would be, Hargrave. So that's huge for them. Their D-line gets even more scary than it already is. I don't know what's going to happen with Javon Kinlaw. I think he still might be under contract. So they have Javon Kinlaw, Javon Hargrave. That's funny that they have two guys with the same first name. Then they have Bosa. I mean, it's a scary. Oh, Eric Armstead's still there. I mean, good Lord. I didn't even think about that. Their D line's going to be crazy. And it sucks that, we're going to lose an Eagle to the 49ers, who is going to be one of the bigger pieces of competition for obviously the Eagles trying to go for another Super Bowl potentially. So it is what it is, but that sucks. Javon Hargrave to the 49ers. We pretty much knew that Javon Hargrave was not going to come back to the Eagles. They were looking at $20+ million per year for him to come back, and that was just not going to be realistic for the Eagles to do this season. We have a lot of dead cap space on the books right now. So it sucks. But the Eagles right now, with the amount of draft capital they have, they should be able to kind of retool, rebuild this offseason. And my opinion of this whole thing is the fact that, there's a lot of basically the NFC is just so weak right now with the fact that there's not a whole lot of great quarterback play in the NFC. You got obviously Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray when healthy, Matt Stafford when healthy. It's a lot of ifs and buts when it comes to some of the quarterback, group here in the NFC. And so I think that gives the Eagles a little bit of a chance to they can be competitive this year. I don't know how great they're going to be considering their defense is probably going to take quite a hit. They have a ton of, obviously free agents on the defensive side of the ball. So the offense is all put together. They're not going to really miss a beat. Jason Kelce is coming back. That was another one of the big dominoes today. Learning that Jason Kelce will be back for another year for the Eagles. They drafted Cam Jurgens last year in the second round, and he is slated to become the center whenever Jason Kelce decides to retire. Isaac Seumalo is a free agent this season as well at right guard. So with that being said, it looks like probably Jason Kelce coming back. Seumalo is probably going to end up leaving the Chicago Bears, another team that are probably looking to soup up their offensive line, considering how bad it was for Justin Fields last year. They're probably going to want to snag him. So I think he's probably going to end up being gone. The Bears, like I said, probably on the radar for Seumalo. That pretty much gives you, the answer there for right guard for the Eagles. That Cam Jurgens probably slides over for a year. Jason Kelce retires probably next year. If I'm not, we don't know for sure, but I would assume that's probably what's going to happen. Cam Jurgens slides in at center, and then the Eagles try to go for the future for their next right guard. Maybe draft one this season, or this draft season. So, yeah, that's another big one. Let's go through the list here. Obviously, the Eagles also lost TJ Edwards, middle linebacker for the team this year. He was a solid player. He was an undrafted free agent, so it was nice that he kind of developed into what could be a starting linebacker for a Super Bowl, berth team. But at the end of the day, I'm not really pressed on the fact that he's gone. There was a lot of situations where he just didn't shoot his gun where I thought he should, and it was just a lot to. I don't know. There was he just had limitations as a player, and that's what happens when you're drafting an undrafted free agent. Like some of them can develop, and they're smart enough. Which he was a very smart player. He knew the scheme perfectly. He was a good tackler. He just wasn't ultra athletic. Could not really do much in coverage. He was more of a run stopper. And even in that area, like I said, he just didn't shoot his gun as often as I would have liked him to. So there was a lot of situations there where I think we could have a better player in place at middle linebacker, and obviously Nakobe Dean we drafted last year in the third round. I don't know if he's going to be more of an off ball, if he's going to be like a weak side linebacker, if he's going to try to plug in at middle linebacker to replace TJ Edwards there, but that's where we're at with that as well. Let's see what else do we have here. Oh, this is Devon Hargrave news. We have trying to think of some good ones here. Jonathan Jones going back to the Patriots, so he's not moving anywhere. Jarrett Stidham, this was a kind of a wild one considering the Raiders. He was like the only guy, like I think, on their radar essentially to kind of keep around. Jarrett Stidham's going to the Broncos, I guess, to back up, Russell Wilson. I guess if Russell struggles mightily again, they'll just slide Jarrett Stidham right in there. So that's fine for them, I guess. David Onyemata going from the Saints to the Falcons, which is kind of funny. Obviously, he's going to be going within division. That always sucks for a fan base trying to see a good player leave there. He's getting 3 years, $35 million, $24.5 million guaranteed. Let's see who else we got going here. Looks like the Bucs are interested in Baker Mayfield. That's a wild one to think about. The Bucs plan to release Shaq Mason if they can't get a trade deal done potentially, so that's going to be wild. Let's see. Keyshawn Nixon going back to the Packers on a 1-year deal. He was an incredible special teamers for them, returner, kick return to punt return. He did it all. He smoked the Eagles when they played them this year earlier in the season. That was pretty frustrating because the Eagles special teams kind of struggled all season. Then it showed up in the Super Bowl, which really pissed me off. Let's see what else we got going. It looks like there's going to be the potential of a Denver Broncos trade. Looks like maybe Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and KJ Hamler are all on the block right now to potentially be traded from the Broncos. So keep an eye out for something like that. I will obviously kind of report on this as I see it happening. Calais Campbell got released earlier on. They said that there's a chance that he comes back. That's just kind of like one of those cap casualty kind of things. Let's see what else we got going. Oh yeah, Austin Eckler supposedly is seeking or asking for permission to seek a trade from the Chargers because they couldn't get a deal done a long-term contract extension there. So he is going to be sought after. I would assume he's a little bit long in the tooth, especially for a smaller running back. So I don't know how much he's going to get like on the trade market necessarily. But if they can't come to an agreement with the Chargers, then like there's a chance they cut him and he would garner, I think, a lot of interest like on the free market. Even like with the trade potentially. I mean, based off of what just happened recently with Jalen Ramsey going for what was that, a fourth? How do you expect a lot of these players to get more than that when Jalen Ramsey is one of the better cornerbacks in all of football? So that's interesting going forward. Let's see. That's pretty much all of the big stuff so far. Let me get back up here to the top and see if there's anything else that just happened recently. Okay, the Lions are signing Cam Sutton to a 3-year deal worth $33 million, $22.5 million guaranteed. Cam Sutton's a pretty solid cornerback. The defense of the Detroit Lions was pretty lackluster this season. It's mostly their secondary that was very leaky. Their linebackers not great either. Their D-line's pretty solid, but they definitely need players, and I think that's probably a good move there for them. Let's see. All right, not a lot has dropped since then. Let me get back to. I got all these, NFL insiders with the bell notifications, so I'm getting these tweets as they come necessarily. So I got guys like Schefter, Ian Rappaport, Tom Pelissero, Mike Garafolo. Who else is on? Jay Glazer, just in case. Okay, it looks like Nick Gates. I think he was either a center or a guard for the Giants the last few years. He broke his leg, like a really nasty one of those, just like don't want to look at it, want to kind of look away from the screen type of breaks in his leg. A couple years ago, came back, and I think he played pretty well last year for the Giants. But he is now going to the Commanders. It looks like on a 3-year deal. I don't think there's any money attached to that just yet. Michael Parsons tweets out, "Oh wow, Bosa, Javon, and Eric." That's funny. Yeah, he's that's going to be a scary D line in San Francisco. That's for sure. Oh wow! So according to Adam Schefter, it sounds like the Saints' defensive line is now poised to lose David Onyemata, obviously already gone to the Falcons. Shy Tuttle and Marcus Davenport. That's essentially their entire defensive line, other than Cam Jordan. Cam Jordan apparently they're trying to work on a deal to get him back, but he's super long in the tooth. I don't know how much longer he's going to be a very effective player. Obviously, he was pretty efficient and effective last year, but man, defensive line for the Saints is going out the window, and Derek Carr just signed there. He's going to have to put some points up in order to keep the Saints in some of these games this year. But I mean, I would take right now the Saints to obviously win the NFC South at this point. Everybody else is super up in the air, unless like I said, the Panthers they really went for it all with the trading for the number one overall draft pick this season for the Chicago Bears. Traded away DJ Moore in the trade as well. A lot of draft compensation. It was obviously they swapped 1 and 9 this year. Then they have a 2024 first and a 2025 second as well that they traded away in order to get up to the number one spot from 9, which was a lot of compensation. But if there's a guy there that you really, really want, it's really worth it. I mean, it really is, because otherwise you're just in quarterback slash team purgatory for years to come if you don't have your franchise guy. So it's worth it. But like I said, the Saints should be in the driver's seat right this second with the way their team on at least offense looks right now. Then, like I said, the Panthers, if they get their guy, which I think, in my opinion, is going to be C.J. Stroud. I just think he fits the mold of what Frank Reich likes in a quarterback. If they get him and he is like as ready to go as he probably should be, that Panthers team can be pretty legit. Their defense is pretty solid. They got players on defense. They got Derek Brown, Shaq Thompson, Brian Burns, Jeremy Chin. They have some corners. They have J.C. Horn. I don't know what's going to happen with Dante Jackson. I think he might be a free agent, actually. If not, I think he tore his ACL this year too. So I don't know how long that's going to take him to get back from that. But their defense is pretty solid. Their offense could struggle. I don't know what they're going to do with potentially re-signing Deontay Foreman. They have Chuba Hubbard still. But like I said, since they gave away DJ Moore, their wide receiving core is very, very barren. I mean, what do they have left? Just Terrace Marshall, really? And he was not like great necessarily. Yeah, it's gonna be a little bit. I think they're gonna be potential big players for some of these wide receivers. Maybe they trade for a potential one of these Broncos wide receivers that are apparently on the block. I don't know. We'll see, I guess. Let's see what some of these other insiders have put on here thus far. I hope you guys can hear me. That would be not good if you couldn't hear me. Hmm. I know there's a lot of speaking on the NFC East because obviously I'm an Eagles fan here. There is a lot of clamoring for the Cowboys to do something relatively big, whether it be trade or through free agency, because of just I don't know, man. Jerry Jones has just been on this thing where he's been trying to blame Dak Prescott for the lack of free agency, like or lack of free agent targets and stuff like that they could go after, and the lack of trying to keep Amari Cooper in house last year, having to trade him because of Dak Prescott's contract. And I think at this point, a lot of the Cowboys fans are seeing through the BS, and none of that should have been a real excuse for them not to go after some of the free agent targets that some of these Cowboys fans want them to go after, as well as keeping Amari Cooper in house because obviously their wide receiver core was basically just CeeDee Lamb. Michael Gallup was not as good last year. Obviously, he was coming off an ACL, so he may kind of make a little bit of a bounce back this year, but it just did not look good last year. You have like Noah Brown, who I think is a free agent as well, so he's probably going to be gone. Dalton Schultz is probably going to be gone as well. So it's not like that Cowboys O line is going to get much better necessarily. Yeah, I don't like the Cowboys, obviously. I hate them, as a matter of fact. But I feel bad for some of these Cowboys fans, at least the ones that are like reasonable, the ones that are, reasonable fans, the ones that call out the Cowboys on their BS for the most part. Some of these delusional Cowboys fans, you deserve every bit of this. So I'm sorry about that, but it is what it is. Because I mean, the delusion that comes from the fans of the franchise are just it's next level. It really is, considering just how little success they have actually had since essentially I was born. So, and I'm 27. What a disaster. Oh, yeah. Also, since I'm on the topic of the NFC East and stuff like that, I should kind of, I guess, touch on maybe some thoughts on Daniel Jones and whatnot. Daniel Jones getting a new extension, 4 years, 160 mil. Ooh, we'll get back to that. Raiders closing in on a deal with Jimmy Garoppolo. Wow. So a little bit of a reunion there for Jimmy Garoppolo and Mike. I said Mike. Josh McDaniels in Las Vegas. That's interesting. Definitely a downgrade. He's not as good as Derek Carr, in my opinion. Maybe Josh McDaniels thinks maybe he'll just kind of do what I say and operate the offense in the way I want it to. He obviously knows the system and whatnot, so that's a good start. He's probably going to be able to come right in and affect the team right away in that department. But he's just not as good. I don't know, man. Last year when they traded for Devontae Adams, I was on record saying that, man, this is such a terrible idea. They're spending all this draft capital on a wide receiver who is a little bit older. He's still incredibly good at football. Let's not get anything twisted here. But he's going into a situation where he's in the AFC West with at least two other teams in last offseason. It looked like three other teams that would be much, much better than them. And so it was a lot to like bank on to think that Devontae Adams would put them over the hump and make them the AFC West champions when you have Kansas City and Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid. I mean, and then not to mention them, Justin Herbert and the Chargers and all those players over there on that side. And then what looked like it would have been an awesome addition last year was Russell Wilson to the Broncos, and that just did not pan out. But hopefully, well, I guess if you're a fan of somebody in the AFC West, not necessarily, but I hope Sean Payton can kind of get Russell Wilson back on track here. But I don't know. I really don't. It's very up in the air. And obviously, like I said earlier, they signed Jarrett Stidham. I guess to be the backup, just in case Russell Wilson just completely craps the bed again this year. So that's going to be super interesting. It really is. Um, Free agency, man, wild stuff. Okay, yeah. Let me get back to my, I guess, New York Giants point there. Daniel Jones getting his extension as well, so they franchise tag Saquon Barkley. This, I mean, I guess you had to do it if you're the Giants. It's unfortunate because he's. I think Daniel Jones is like okay. He is very, very average. His numbers didn't look great, but he, led his team obviously to the playoffs. Got a playoff win against the Vikings, which a lot of people didn't expect him to do. I mean, by the time that it rolled around to the playoffs, people kind of expect the Vikings to go ahead and drop one because they always choke. But then obviously the Eagles rolled them in the divisional round of the playoffs. But I do I'm very curious to see what the Giants are going to look like with some real wide receiver talent around him. It could be good. They're probably not going to have Saquon for the near future, I would assume. I just don't see him signing a long-term contract after the fact that they tagged him this season. They want to keep him around just to keep the team kind of competitive at the very least. This could be interesting. The NFC East will be interesting again this year. Let's see what we got going on. Nothing since the Jimmy Garoppolo stuff dropped. I don't know who you are that's in here, but I appreciate it. Also, if you are a subscriber, I really appreciate it. This is the first time I've been talking, I guess, directly to somebody that's been a subscriber. Jesus, can't even talk. But yeah, dude, I appreciate everybody that's subscribed since I started this thing. It's kind of been a long time coming. I just hit my head on my mic. I'm a moron. But yeah, I appreciate everybody that kind of tunes in, listens to all my stuff. I'm kind of a moron, so anything you guys support me on is a shock to me and very, very appreciated. So you guys are awesome. And oh man, I appreciate it. There you go in the chat there. That's cool. But yeah, man, keep this content stuff rolling. It's not like it's the best content in the world, but I throw it out there when I can, obviously. And it's a fun little escape for me. What is your name? I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. I'm sorry, brother. I don't want to completely butcher something on live right here. But if you got any like questions or anything like that, or if you got any like players you want to talk about, go ahead and shoot me some stuff in the chat if you want to. I'm willing to talk about whatever at this point because we're the news cycle for free agency has slowed down quite significantly at this point. So, you know what I probably should end up doing? Let me see if I can pull up like free agents and we'll start just going off the rip. Ooh, that is interesting. Raiders fan. Well, so the Raiders actually just signed Jimmy Garoppolo, so he will be the starting quarterback for you guys. Taylor Heineke is a very interesting player in general, though. I think he is literally the prototypical perfect backup because he's not one of those guys that's going to go in and necessarily like I don't know, just be conservative, which a lot of backup quarterbacks do these days. And I think a backup quarterback needs to be a little bit more, gung ho when it comes to trying to make plays. And I think Taylor Heineke just doesn't have a filter when it comes to that. I mean, you could see how like passionate and fiery he was on the field for the Commanders these past few years. And I think that's a very good sign for a backup, like a career backup kind of guy. I don't think he's a starting quarterback at all. I mean, he can win you games. Obviously, he did for the Commanders in the right situation where they had a pretty solid defense. They had very good weapons on the outside and at running back and whatnot. So I think he can find a spot where, honestly, for the Eagles, as an Eagles fan, I would love him as a backup. That would be incredible because I know he's going to go in there and he's going to at least try to win the game. He's going to throw the ball down the field. It looks like he thinks he's Pat Mahomes, but obviously he's not. So he's definitely an interesting prospect in that regard. So I think he's a pretty good player, especially for a backup. But yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be your guy in Las Vegas now. So that's going to be interesting. Obviously, he knows the system with Josh McDaniels, the New England connection there. So it can work out. I don't know what's going to happen with the rest of the AFC West. I mean, for your sake, you got to hope that Russell Wilson does not work out for Sean Payton, and Sean Payton has to go back to the drawing board when it comes to quarterback, even though they also grabbed Jarrett Stidham in this free agency period as well. So they signed him as a backup. So that's pretty wild, the connections there, the AFC West connections there. But yeah, the AFC West is just so tough right now, man. It's just Kansas City's so good. Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelce, it seems like they're going to be there forever, but and then, of course, you got Justin Herbert and the Chargers. That's always a daunting task to try to beat them, twice a year as well when you're in the AFC West. And I don't know. And then, like I said, you just got to kind of hope the Broncos just kind of stink again. That's really what you're rooting for at this point. But it looks like the Broncos got Mike McGlinchey as their right tackle. Now they signed him today as well. Looks like the wide receivers for the Broncos, all three of the top ones, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, all of them are on the trade block, according to one of these reports. I don't remember who it was that said it, but yeah, that's the case there. Okay, we got a little something else now. Bills have agreed to terms with Connor McGovern on a 3-year, $23 million deal. Former third-round pick of the Cowboys heading to Buffalo. What? This means 50%. Oh, wow. That's just a dumb tweet. Okay, whatever. I'm not worried about that. But yeah, the Cowboys are losing a guard in Connor McGovern. If I'm not mistaken, he started at left guard this season. So that could be a loss. I think he starting at left guard whenever they moved Smith to left tackle. So that's literally a guard missing now. Interesting. Let's see what we got. I think we got something else here. I love the or whatever that term is. Inside division movement is hilarious to me because I feel like so much of it is petty. So it looks like Miami is signing Mike White to a 2-year deal worth up to $16 million. That's just funny to me. Obviously, the Dolphins have to put in a backup plan for Tua at this point because of just his concussion symptoms and concussion history in general. So, man, that's funny because Mike White was obviously pretty solid in relief of Zach Wilson and Joe Flacco, whoever was playing in the Jets organization last year in general. So Miami is putting a solidified, solid backup behind Tua. That's probably smart. So nothing much else there, honestly. Let's see. I think we might have some numbers on okay. Garoppolo is a 3-year deal, $67.5 million, including $34 million guaranteed. honestly, when it comes to QBs, I don't know how good or bad that is necessarily. But yeah, no, I agree with that. I think Miami, that is a smart move for Miami to get, a solid backup for Tua, considering Tua's history with injuries now. Because I mean, with Tua in there, he is like, I'm not a huge Tua guy. I think he's just a good enough um, facilitator of the football. He's kind of like a point guard. He's going to get the ball out of his hands and get it to his playmakers. I think he still is very limited as a quarterback. I don't think his arm is great necessarily. But he just has such good weapons there, and Mike McDaniels knows how to get the ball out of his hands and into his playmakers' hands, and I think that's good enough, especially with the way the defensive side of the ball is now rounding up with Jalen Ramsey going there. So you got Jalen Ramsey, you have Xavier Howard, both sides that your bookends when it comes to the cornerbacks there. You have Javon Holland, who is a very, very good safety there. You have Christian Wilkins on the defensive line. Let's see who else you got. Bradley Chubb came over from the Broncos in a trade last year. I'm blanking on the young guy, the young player that is a defensive end as well. He's a very good player. Wow, why am I completely blanking on it? Whatever. But yeah, basically what I'm trying to get to, though, is if Tua can stay healthy, that team is going to be very dangerous because the defense is going to be good next year. I would assume. I just don't see a real universe where they're like terrible at all. They're at least going to be in the top half of the league in defense, and their offense with Tua in the lineup is going to be really tough to stop. But like I said, you just have to keep them upright and see what happens. Looks like we got something else going on here. Ooh, this is a big loss. Andrew Wiley, right tackle for the Chiefs, is going to the Commanders on a 3-year, $24 million deal. Man, he was good for Kansas City, especially in the Super Bowl. Had to watch that live. That was not cool. Had to watch all of our defensive ends slip around all day. But yeah, it's a huge loss. Obviously, I think at this point, if they're losing the right tackle, I think they probably have now the flexibility and money to keep their left tackle, which is going to be Orlando Brown. I would assume they keep him there. I don't think they're going to let him walk out of the door at this point since they're losing their other right tackle. So obviously, at this point, I think right tackle is a big target for them in the draft this season. Oh man. The guy that tweeted about this Andrew Wiley signing said that Wiley started 59 games in 5 years for Kansas City and had the game of his life in the Super Bowl against Philadelphia. Yeah, thanks, man. Come on now. Oh, that was painful, man. That sucked. We spent a lot of money going to Arizona. I like painfully have to rock all the stuff that I bought from the Super Bowl run and whatnot. I just have to. I don't know. It's a hard pill to swallow, but it is what it is. Because all the gear that I bought, man, it's so fresh. It's so fresh, but God bless, it sucks, man. Ugh, it's tough. Yeah, at this point, I just have to laugh about it because nothing else you can do, man. And then, of course, obviously now the off season, you see all the free agents the Eagles have, and you're like, man, we should have shut the door when you had the chance. It really sucks. Yeah, no, I knew this offseason was going to be kind of a retooling, a rebuilding for the Eagles and whatnot, but I have to just put my faith in Howie Roseman, who is one of the better GMs in all of football, that he's going to have a plan here for this. And I think part of that plan is looking at the landscape of the NFC and seeing just how weak the NFC is in regards to the quarterback play. You look around, there's not a whole lot of good quarterback play in the NFC. It's a weak division right now. All the good players and quarterbacks and teams in totality are in the AFC, so you got to kind of strike when the iron's hot when you're an Eagles team who has one of the better quarterbacks in the NFC, if not the best. It just depends on your opinion. in my bias, I do think Jalen Hurts is probably the best quarterback right this second in the NFC. I mean, I can see where people can argue, Matt Stafford, when healthy, just wasn't healthy last year at all. So we'll have to see what happens with that. His team this year is going to be without a lot of good players. The Rams are kind of having a fire sale over there in Los Angeles. So pretty much what I'm getting at here, I think the Eagles are still a contender or Super Bowl contender. It really comes down to just how after, obviously this free agency period and the draft pan out, just what the landscape of the NFC looks like, because it really is, it's based on if the Eagles can kind of level off necessarily and you just keep free agents and get free agents. I don't know. Basically, if the quarterback landscape in the NFC stays as it is right now, it's going to be much easier for the Eagles to still get into the playoffs and make a run for it. And then, just like last year, if somehow the Eagles get the 1 seed, you get 2 home playoff wins, and this the Super Bowl. And then the Super Bowl, you never know what can happen. I mean, the Eagles were very, very close to winning the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs. It was a few plays that just turned the tide in that game. And so, obviously, Kansas City's regarded as one of the best teams, maybe, ever really. Just based on the fact that they have Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes there. So it really is more about just get into the playoffs and see what happens. And I think the Eagles can definitely do that next year. I think they can definitely win the division. I think they can definitely, if not win the division, get into a wild card spot. And then, like I said, it's just whatever. And then, so the Eagles have experience now in the playoffs. Last year, there was a ton of young players that had never been in the playoffs. And so it's just one of those things where if you can get in, that's all you can ask at that point, and then just see what happens from there. And I think they can still do that based off of the talent on the offensive side of the ball. So it's really if Howie can plug and play with some of these draft picks and whatnot, that's going to be huge for them. All right, let's see what we got going on here. Do we have anything else? This isn't huge at all, but Case Keenum signing a 2-year deal to be the backup, essentially, probably going to be the backup for the Texans. Texans are probably going to end up drafting a guy. So, yeah. Interesting. All right. Anybody else got any thing they want to talk about specifically? Like I said, the news cycle has slowed down quite a bit. Here's something that's not that big of a deal either. Texans are expected to sign former Patriots and Browns pass rusher Chase Winovich. Nick Caserio in Houston. He was a New England guy. I think he actually may have drafted Winovich when he was in New England there. So now, obviously, he's with the Texans. He's going to be potentially signing with the Texans now. So that's a smaller guy to fall, but. I'll be right back. I'm going to go grab a water. All right. Ooh, tweet here. Texans Pro Bowl left tackle Laramie Tunsil has been discussed in potential trade scenario with the Chiefs. According to league sources, fluid situation on whether it happens. However, Chiefs potentially retaining Orlando Brown has not been ruled out by the Chiefs. That would be wild if they could swing a trade for Laramie Tunsil. He is a stud, obviously, but I think the most likely scenario is going to be Orlando Brown going back there to be the left tackle for the Chiefs. So, man, right now, as an Eagles fan, we have had nothing but losses at this point, which, we were kind of expecting, but I think Howie Roseman does have one big shot up his sleeve, but I don't really know who that's going to be. I honestly kind of hope it's just retaining CJ Gardner Johnson. But it's kind of up in the air. We'll see, because he may be asking for a little bit too much money, and the Eagles can only do so much this offseason with the amount of dead cap they have. What in the world is this? Just sitting here waiting on some more news to drop at this point. See if I can find some more rumors, at least on Twitter. Yeah, honestly, my guy that was in here earlier, I feel a little bad about Jimmy Garoppolo replacing Derek Carr, because obviously Derek Carr is a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo, and I hope that doesn't really get a lot of people in Las Vegas's hopes up at this point, because that team is not going to be good again, unfortunately, especially in the AFC West. Who, obviously the Chiefs just won the Super Bowl. The Chargers are still a very good team, as long as Brandon Staley can kind of get out of his own way. Yeah. And then the Broncos, very up in the air. does Sean Payton turn Russell Wilson around or not? It's up in there as well. I wonder where some of these other, Eagles free agents are going to go. James Bradbury's one of the big ones as well that could potentially be on the move here. Looks like the Eagles have been in contact with him as well as C.J. Gardner-Johnson to try to bring them two back. But obviously they have a number that they're willing to give both of these players, and if they exceed that, it just kind of is what it is. And they're probably both going to be gone as well. But just potential places where I think James Bradbury could potentially go. The first thing that pops in my mind for whatever reason, I don't know really what the cap situation over in Cincinnati looks like, but Cincinnati could really use a good cover corner. And so James Bradbury could be a sweet target for them if they're, trying to look to obviously contend again in the AFC and potentially try to win a Super Bowl. So I think that's a pretty solid spot for him if he were to move on from the Eagles. I hope he kind of does not at this point, but the cornerback class in the draft this season is very, very deep. So there is the potential of, the Eagles just letting, James Bradbury ride and just drafting a cornerback in the first round. That would be something I can see them doing, but you never know. Oh, hey, we got something going on here. Let's see. Who is this? Whoa. Okay. That didn't see that coming. Yeah. You guys act like this is gonna be crazy, but Jaguars offensive tackle Jawan Taylor is signing with the Chiefs on a 4-year, $80 million deal with $60 million guaranteed. Source said after all the talk about Orlando Brown, Kansas City signs another tackle. Wow, that's wild. So is Orlando Brown just gonna be chilling out there? And they already let Andrew Wiley go. Why wouldn't they? I don't know. This is interesting for sure. Jawan Taylor. I don't know a whole lot about Jawan Taylor. I'll be completely honest, but I guess he's good enough for Kansas City to think he can slide right in and be the starting left tackle for them for the next 4 years at the very least. So that's wild. And let's see what else we got going. I guess I can kind of speak on, the Aaron Rodgers situation. That's, a lot of people are a little bit fatigued on his whole saga the last, what has it been, like 3 or 4 years, where it's just been weird decision after weird decision and having to see if he wants to come back to Green Bay and whatnot, but blah, blah, blah. But he is probably going to end up being a Jet if I had to, bet on it. But I just don't see a situation where he goes back to Green Bay. They obviously have already kind of like said that they do not want him back. So I think it's either going to the Jets or retiring. Really, that's the only two options I believe are here for him at this point. Because I mean, all the other quarterback situations are kind of solved at this point with Jimmy Garoppolo going to the Raiders, Derek Carr going to the Saints. That's really a very small spot for him to operate in, and he's pretty much between a rock and a hard place. I guess it's not really a rock and a hard place because he either be retiring, which is something I guess he's probably been wanting to do for a while, or going to the Jets, where I think he can actually really compete. They were very close with Mike White, Zach Wilson, and Joe Flacco last year to being in the wild card. So why can't they make some noise with a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who he's not as good as he once was, but he's much better than those three guys combined, really. So that would be very interesting. I think I'd like to see him go to the Jets, honestly, just to see what he could do in the AFC. The AFC would just be such a gauntlet. At the end of the day, I kind of want all the quarterbacks to flee and go to the AFC for biased reasons when it comes to the Eagles and just clearing out the talent from the NFC, so it makes it an easier path for the Eagles to potentially get back to a Super Bowl. Oh, so the news cycle has really slowed down at this point. So I think I'm probably gonna end this thing at probably the 60-minute mark, the hour mark here. And if you guys want to follow anything else, I will be definitely kind of live tweeting this stuff as it kind of happens on Twitter. So I'll still be talking this stuff. I just won't be on live necessarily. Um, I will probably be covering some of the bigger moves that have happened, over this next 3 day period, even into draft, the more closer to the draft season stuff, because I'll be doing some social media stuff. I'll probably be doing some TikTok stuff, some YouTube short stuff. But yeah. So yeah, so obviously the Chiefs are moving on from Orlando Brown. I wonder where he may end up going. That's going to be an interest. I mean, he was a very, very solid left tackle for the Chiefs the last few years. Um, there's definitely some teams out there that are left tackle needy. I just wonder where that may end up being. You think, maybe the Bears could be in this situation. The Bears are in a very interesting situation when it comes to having to spend money in free agency, because I think the last couple of years they've been actually under the cap, which is something you don't normally hear when it comes to NFL franchises. But they just haven't been willing to spend a lot of money because they knew that they were just kind of rebuilding, retooling. And so now they're on the hook for they have to meet a certain required amount of money over like a 2-year period, I think it is. And so now you look at the fact that the Bears are going to have to spend money. They're going to have to, you know, upgrade that O line for Justin Fields and the new weapons they have there: Chase Claypool, DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, I should say. And that's going to be interesting. I think they might make a play for Orlando Brown to go ahead and solidify that O line for them. They have Tevin Jenkins. He's solid. I think they probably are in on maybe Isaac Seumalo. I don't know. I think they might end up retooling that entire O line in free agency in the draft this year. And obviously, they need bodies on defense as well. That Chicago Bears team is not super talented, but I think with the amount of draft capital they do have now and the amount of money that they have to their disposal, they can really turn this whole thing around very quickly in a season or two, an off season or two. So I'd definitely keep an eye on Orlando Brown potentially to the Bears. All right, I think I'm probably going to go ahead and close this thing up. The news cycle has slowed down quite a bit since it started at 12 o'clock today. So I think I'm going to go ahead and end this thing off. There's been a lot of cool stuff happening here, but um, obviously, if there's anything that huge happens in the next few days, I'm probably going to be going straight to social media for it. Probably on Twitter at Coordinated Chaos there. Then probably I'll be posting videos on TikTok and on YouTube Shorts and stuff like that. I might end up doing a podcast when all of the free agency starts to completely die down in the next couple weeks, maybe to kind of recap everything there and maybe do like a I don't know, a review on who is the winners and losers of free agency when it comes to teams and players and whatnot, who, really got the bag, who kind of got less than we were kind of anticipating, things of that nature. But yeah, dude, just I appreciate everybody that kind of tuned in today, and I will be very active for the next few weeks. Obviously, going into the draft is going to be super fun, especially for me as an Eagles fan. We have the 10th overall pick as well as the 30th, I believe I think it is. So a lot of cool stuff to happen over the next few months, and I'm really looking forward to it. So hopefully the Eagles can get back on track. Some of these other teams can get some players that they really need over these next few months, and we'll have a sweet 2024 NFL football season. Yeah, just stay tuned on all of my social channels on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok. I'm all over the place there. So please subscribe, follow, whatever it may be on all those platforms, and I would really appreciate it. But yeah, I appreciate everybody that tuned in today and kind of interacted with me. You guys are awesome, and I appreciate everybody that has been staying tuned for the last couple years or whatever. So we will talk to you guys later. See you.